Wounded hearts, wounded minds.
Correct. Without a doubt.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything that you could say to young people today about the service, about your service, what you learned, or what you would hope that they would, how they would appreciate what was done in the past?
That's a very tough question. Don't go to war. There's a better way to take care of things. Compromise, negotiations. But when all else fails, I'm going to have to say, if you go to war and you go in with faith and tenacity. Because if you're going to go in there just to goof off, you're a dead duck. You have to have faith in what you're doing, that it's what you want to do, and it's supposed to be coming to a good outcome. So either you do or you don't. If you don't want to, don't go there.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. And I know, to let you know that we appreciate what you have done and through your service and for sharing with us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, and I want to say thank you for joining us this evening and telling us about your experience in the military. To start, would you just tell us your name, the branch of the service that you served in, and when you served?
Well, my name is Lynn J. Bershey. I was in the United States Army, Judge Advocate General's Corps, and I served from 1968 to 1974.
Okay, thank you. When you were serving then, it was during time of conflict?
It was the time of the Vietnam War.
Okay. You said you were judge, advocate?
Judge Advocate General, that's the legal section.
Okay, JAG.
JAG,
Okay.
but
And
not
so,
like television.
not like television. So tell us about what did you do by serving in the JAG?
Basically, I was lucky. My job was to help the soldier. I did court-martial defense. I did claims against the Army when military vehicles were involved in automobile accidents, and I gave legal advice to family and soldiers with their marital problems or debt collections, things of that nature.
When you were involved with a family, did you ever have to deliver bad news or anything like that, or were you primarily working with soldiers on their side?
Well, I didn't deliver bad news, and I'd like to tell somebody a death or anything like that. I was an office job and helped the family as much as you could with a 15-minute appointment.
So were you always stateside?
I was lucky. I was stateside the whole time.
Okay. When we were involved in that conflict in Vietnam, how did you feel as an American citizen about what we were doing there?
Well, I felt that our leaders hopefully knew what we were doing, and I wasn't about to go off to Canada and shirk my duty, but I didn't volunteer to go to Vietnam. I figured the Army knew where they wanted me, and if they want me in Vietnam, I'd go, and if they want me stateside, I'd stay stateside.
Did you volunteer or were you drafted?
I volunteered because the draft board was right after me. So on paper, I was a volunteer, but I was drafted. I volunteered because of the draft.
Okay. When you were performing your duties, did you feel like you were contributing to the war effort in any way? How did you feel as you performed your duties?
I felt like I was helping the soldier, primarily the enlisted people. The war effort was not as important to me. That was a couple thousand miles away. I was helping the soldiers and their families with their problems. That made me feel good.
Okay. Did your faith come into your practice at all as you were serving these soldiers?
Well, I think my faith is what got me there. At least I always attribute it to it because I dreaded, well, first of all, I was 25 years old. So starting in the Army, being an enlisted man at age 25 is not a pleasant experience. And fortunately, the Supreme Court came out with an edict that all servicemen were entitled to an attorney in court-martial. So all of a sudden they needed lawyers. So I got what's called a direct commission. By being an attorney, I was able to get a commission and live the life of a commissioned officer stateside. So I was always thankful for that and always helped the individual soldier. I was lucky to do that. Occasionally I prosecuted, but most of the time I was defense.
Is there any, are there any situations or stories that you have that stand out that you remember from your time of service?
Yes,
Would you like to share one with us?
I have a favorite story. It was before Christmas and I was defending two soldiers who were AWOL. One was AWOL for long enough that he was pending trial in the stockade. The other one was just in a barracks. And I got both of them off with no confinement, and they were able to go home for Christmas. And the one who was in the barracks invited the other one to come to his barracks, but it was after the court trial ended after 5. He couldn't go back to the stockade because he was free, so he went over to this empty barracks. The next morning, I got a call from the man who was in the barracks. Said that Private Jones cleaned out my footlocker, took all my stuff, and went AWOL again. So, okay, I told him how to file a claim against the Army, get reissued clothes, helped him do that. And it was on Christmas Day. I was home with the family for Christmas, and you had to sign out and give a phone number where you could be reached. And I got a call from this woman. She was the AWOL's son's mother, who's, the father, by the way, was a minister. They told me that. And she said, I know what my son did wrong, but Captain Berkshire, you gotta help me. I said, well, he's only been gone a couple of days, turned himself in. Well, you can't do that. I said, I asked, why not? He said, because what the Army's doing to him. I said, what? Well, he can't go outside because there's a $500 dead or alive reward for him, and to shoot him on sight once he's seen. I said, where did you hear this? She said, my son. Well, I said, to have another talk with your son, there's no $500 dead or alive rewards for somebody who's AWOL for a couple of days. Do you mean my son's lying to me? Yes, ma'am, I think your son's lying to me. You've been watching too many Westerns. So that's one of my favorite Army stories about.
So did he ever turn himself in?
I don't know. If he did, it wasn't handled by me.
So is there anything else that you want to share with us regarding your time in the service?
I met a lot of fine people, some of whom I still stay in contact with, particularly a friend of mine who's a lawyer near Boston, Massachusetts, and you make a lot of close friends, and all the military people I met, or almost all, are great people, and I had the highest respect for the draftees and for the career military. They're a great group of people. We owe them a lot.
Well, and we want to thank you for your service. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for doing this project. It's nice to be appreciated, particularly the Vietnam era people were not particularly appreciated. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, I would like to thank you for joining us this evening and agreeing to this interview. I'd like to start with you just telling us your name, the branch of the military that you served in, and when you served.
I'm Fred Meister, and I was a member of the United States Air Force from December of 1947 to December of 1951, 4 years.
And where did you serve?
Well, being in the Air Force, I was in four different commands. I started in a training command where I went to photo school, and then I was part-time instructor in repairing photo equipment, and then I went into student assignment. Well, it was while I was in student assignment, after a while, I told my boss, Sergeant Wolfgate, boy, I'd sure like to go overseas and see more of the world. He said, I'll see what I can do. He came back and he says, there's an opening for you in the Philippines, but you have to extend your enlistment another year because you have to have 2 years. He says, no problem. 2 weeks later, I was on my way to the Philippines. And after that Philippines, I was there about 6 months, and the Korean War started. Well, they needed photographers up in headquarters in Tokyo, Japan. So 3 of us were transferred up there as public relation photographers and lab personnel. Well, I was there till my discharge came, but during the period of time there, I was sent into Korea 3 times. First time I went in there right after the Incheon invasion, and I'll tell you what, Seoul, Korea, and the community was kind of bombed out, and the smell of death all over the place. They hadn't cleaned up yet. So we were there for a while, and then we went up to Wonsan, and there, when I was sitting there one evening, and the army people came in and said they needed a photographer. I said, okay, here I am. Said, we have an atrocity up the line. So got in the Jeep, went up there and said, we'll take him in the morning. Well, let me tell you, it was cold, and you have no idea of the odor. But I took the pictures, and I could tell my camera shutter was not clicking right. It was going click instead of click. So I thought, uh-oh. I took all the pictures. We took some more of some seniors that were killed, murdered, laying in their classrooms. And then, of course, the one I really can't get out of my mind is that Air Force pilot who was shot down. He crash landed on this sandbar in the river. And when I went up to take a picture, all there was just a pile of flesh with his dog tags atop. But after that, then I went back to Korea, back to my lab in Tokyo. Spent there about 3 days or 3 weeks. I went back over again, this time with a different writer, Colonel Jim Sweeney. Well, we flew into Wonsan, but we had to get up north. So we got in a boxcar at dark, closed the door, and we got up there. Next morning we looked, artillery shells. That's what we were sitting on all night. Boy, but anyway, we got off there, and he found a captain in the army, and we got in his Jeep, and we drove all the way over to North Korea, back and forth, taking pictures of what the Air Force involvement was in the Korean conflict. That was my main job. So we traveled around, and one time we got to this one town, and we met the mayor of the town. And we had an interpreter with us. So we asked him, is there any place we can get cleaned up? You know, we've been out here for about 3 weeks. Oh yeah, he said something to the girls. Wasn't long they came in. They have their bathtubs are round like this. They'd fill it with water and had a fire underneath it, so we could take a bath.
It felt like you were being cooked.
Boy, but it felt good there. And then after we left there, we headed north, and we were sitting up there one morning. It was Thanksgiving Day morning, by the way, of 1950. And here comes one of the Army guys out of the building and says, is there a gym around here? And Jim Sweeney, the guy I was with, here I am. And he says, here's a telegram for you. The telegram was just a few words. It said, Jim, get your ass out, Bill. Bill was General Knuckles back there in Tokyo. So we loaded the Jeep on a flatbed railroad car, and the Army guys put their stuff on the train, and we headed back to the Twin Cities, where there was an airplane waiting for us. Crawled in the airplane and headed back for Tokyo. Dirty, black, from going through those tunnels. Well, I went back in one time, only for one day this time. That's was the beginning of the peace talks. And we had a convoy of the UN forces, troops went up this way, and the North Koreans came that way, and they met, and Pumanjong was sitting there. So I took pictures of that, and I was back in Tokyo that night too. And after that, I just stayed in the lab and worked as lab chief.
So while you were there, you saw some things that you still have trouble getting out of your head.
Yes, that one. And the odor, you'll never get rid of that odor. It's just something.
And so during that time, did you feel like the US was there for a reason?
Yes, definitely. We were to stop communists. It was not only the US, it was all these other things. It was the UN forces, US and Canadians and Australians, all to stop the progression of communists. Because North Korea was going to take over South Korea and make it a communist country. But that didn't happen.
So you feel it was worthwhile?
Definitely, absolutely.
So throughout that time, as you saw those things that have stuck with you, did your faith, was it ever shaken?
No,
Did it sustain you?
no, you know, I attend church quite often.
Mm-hmm.
I did during the service too. We had our little chapels, and well, in Denver and over in Tokyo there was a chapel. But one of my buddies was a Methodist, and his minister from his hometown was over there, a missionary. So we go attend his church, Methodist church. They're all alike, you know. So, yeah, my faith never got shaken. I was well prepared.
So it sustained you
Yes.
throughout that
Oh,
time.
yes.
Are there any other memories that you have that you would like to share with us?
Well, there's so many. Where do I start? I was in service like 4 years. And well, just the other day, in fact, I called a buddy that was my buddy over there in Japan. We were roommates around, and he lives up in Wisconsin. So I got on the phone the other day and called him. And we